Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the eighth episode of the Circular Chat presented by ICCE. This weekly program brings together experts and practitioners from various sectors to delve into the integration of circular practices and sustainability in business models. As we embark on the fifth season, our focus centers on circularity in electrical and electronic equipment sectors. A collaboration with NSR Cell, the Startup Incubation Center at IIM Bangalore. Throughout this season, we have explored pivotal topics such as the lifestyle of electrical and electronic equipment, e-waste collection, closed and open loop business models, material composition, subscription models, and India's vision for circularity in the WEEE sector across 7 episodes. Today, we'll delve into the role of subscription based business models in advancing the principles of the circular economy. Today, we are privileged to have Dr. Reva Prakash. She is the Deputy Team Leader and Project Coordinator with the PIZ GmbH for the European Union funded Resource Efficiency Initiative. He works on issues related to fostering resource efficiency and secondary resource utilization through a life cycle approach, especially in the area of buildings and construction and e-waste. He has worked on implementation of the resource efficiency strategy launched by NITI Aayog and EU delegation to India, including support in the preparation of the RE Sectoral Strategies on EEE sector and construction and demolition waste. Earlier, she was responsible for operationalizing the Secretariat of the Indian Resource Panel towards development of recommendations of an Indian resource efficiency program. She has a PhD in international politics from Jawaharlal Nehru University and has researched on environmentalism in the global south, international environmental norm building and agenda setting, environmental regime, and effectiveness of market mechanisms, globalization, and eco-feminism. Welcome, Reva. We appreciate your valuable time today and thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks a lot, Surbi. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and thanks to ICC for having me here for the circular chat. I've been following the chats for a while, and I think it's an excellent idea of to sort of spread the conversation around circular economy throughout all the groups. Get people interested in talking about circular economy. So thank you for having me here.
Reva. We have prepared a set of questions for you, Reva, you being an expert in this area. So my first question is a very straightforward question. So I want to know that how do subscription-based models, business models, align with the principles of circular economy? Please tell us.
So basically, I think in circular economy, when we talk about circular economy, there are certain principles that guide our work on circular economy, and one of the principles is on how do we continue to use products for as long as possible, and for by as many people as possible, and also bring them back to the producers or the manufacturers or the raw material miners in a way that in a more secure and sustainable manner, and ensure reverse logistics of these, so that they don't land up in landfill, or we don't lose all the materials that go into producing these products. And so when we're trying to think about that, about how can we ensure all these precious resources that go into creating everything that actually surrounds us. We use electronics, we use uh, textiles, and we use range of things around us, and how do we continue to use them for a longer time. And I think subscription and lease models sort of provide an answer to a very particular uh, challenge. How do you more intensively use, and also the challenge of consumption, because the economy is based on consuming more and more. I mean, all our development, all the growth patterns are actually coupled with resource use, and those that intensity has only been rising. So how do we tackle that challenge of consumption, that because we need to consume in order to derive value. So what subscription and lease models provide a solution is to that challenge, because you don't necessarily need to always own a product. You can also derive value out of that product in other ways. I mean, because you want to derive value. For example, something that a lot of our listeners might already be using are the aggregator apps. So you don't own a car. I mean, I don't own a car,
Yeah.
but how do I solve the problem of mobility then? For me, moving from A to B is my need, as opposed to owning a car, right? So how do I solve that problem? So then you have aggregators app, so I can just call a cab or an auto or something. And similarly, I think something that many other people might also be aware of are in the subscription model are around furniture. I think that is also a very common subscription service that a lot of people, especially young professionals who go and live in new cities, have to move, don't own houses, live on rent, and don't want to own a lot of these furniture, because there's a lot of cost also involved in moving that furniture every time you change a place of rent. So we understand that there are already these existing models wherein we can derive a particular value and satisfy a particular need. So in terms of that, circular economy actually sort of tries to see how is it that we can derive different kind of values, because these are just two examples I'm giving. Then, for example, in a lot of things it might not also be possible, for a lot of
Mm.
our products, for a lot of meeting our needs, it might
Right.
not be possible, but there is definitely like a big scope where we can derive value without having to own always product. So
Yes.
this is the main thing. Ownership, this is the question centered around the question of consumption and ownership of products. You buy more and more, consume more and more, but you can also derive value out of subscribing a service, you know
Right.
so
If you would have seen, Reval, in the last episode, we had Samir Arif from Switched. So what, it's a startup only, and this guy, what they do is they rent out, they give electronic cars on renting purposes. So that's how we got to, get them on the this platform. And he shared his story and how this model is working. So, and they are working in Bangalore as of now. I think they have started with Bangalore, and I think they are gonna spread to the whole country, slowly and gradually. But yeah, as we talk about subscription-based models or renting, also they almost come in the same category, I think. But there are some subscription-based, especially subscription-based models. Those things that you can only subscribe, only the services you can take, but yeah, the product is not owned by you.
right.
So, my next question to you is somewhat you have already, said, Reva, that these subscription models enhance product longevity. So, in what ways you think these subscription models are enhancing the longevity and contribute to waste reduction across industries?
Right. So, in terms of product longevity, I think I would like to tackle it sort of differently. This question, how, in what ways it contributes to different circular outcomes. One is that, I mean, when you have a product that provides a service, I think one thing that as a consumer that I see of great value is that I can, always have, I mean, these all obviously these services are also given based some service agreement, between the
Mm,
consumer and the service provider. So when they're giving that service, then the quality of service needs to also be ensured. The value that the consumer also seeks to derive also gets sort of ensured. In that, for example, if there is some level of damage or failure of one part of something that you know um, where the service gets hindered, then it's also on the it's responsibility of the service provider to also ensure that it continues, the consumer sort of continues to benefit from that service, you know. So I think therein, for example, therein lies the idea that it can potentially also contribute to the outcome of product longevity. That is the first. The other is of how much that particular resource is used. I mean, there are several kind of subscription models. For example, I've already talked about aggregator apps where you will have one product being used by different consumers at different times of the day. So it doesn't sort of sit with the consumer for a particular, for a longer period of time. You have a very specific start and end, and it continues for the other products as well. But in terms of renting of other services, the product sort of then either comes to the household or to an organization, depend on who the subscriber is, and then it stays with them within that organization and continues to get used, so the use in itself sort of gets uh, there is more sense, I find that a more sustainable, sensible use. Also, obviously, there is also a responsibility on the side of the consumer as well. I mean, it's not just the role of service provider to provide a service. There is also the role of subscriber to ensure that, you also don't willfully damage, or you also sort of contribute to at least using the product more responsibly. I mean, you also do it when you own the product, definitely, because you will have to buy again. However, in this case, you also have to ensure that you also use it responsibly. So that is what I think. It You may also have another question linked to it. So in terms of repair, I mean, the service provider can itself sort of also offer that as a uh, service to the consumer as well, that okay, you have a subscription to my product, and if it undergoes some disrepair, or if there's some part breaks, then I can also repair. And then therein the question, I think this is something that is very crucial, that that product then gets repaired, and then there is also a repair economy. There's also that, where we say repair is an essential part of circular economy. So the product also gets repaired, and the part that went bad, that part also goes back to the producer, goes back to the service providers, and gets managed more sustainably at the end of life. So there is also this question, in case certain producers, and we know that in case of, for example, lighting as a service, we know that one of the companies has provided lighting as a service to consumers. So if you're providing lighting as a service, and if you're a producer or a manufacturer, and you have to sort of, either at the end of the subscription period or in between for repair, you have to sort of take that product back with you. And then you have, for the producer also is beneficial, because one, you can then, you can then manage it more sustainably at the end of life. Two, in case you need to recover something at the end of life, then you can recover. And three, it's not also an intended idea, intended benefit from these models, is that once you have also these models, then the producers who sort of lose the ownership over their products after it passes to the consumer. Then the design aspect, for example, the design aspect also then can be addressed by the producers. So if I know that I'm offering a service, then what it makes sense to offer a product that lasts longer, that will require fewer repairs, and in case it require repairs, then it should be designed in a way that it can be repaired. And if it comes back to me, then I should be able to also recover material from that product for making other products, that I make. And it may be the same product, it may be another product, but I also have sort of some control over my own secondary raw materials that get recovered from the end of life products.
Right, absolutely. So that's a very interesting point that you have just mentioned, that it is actually in a way, enforcing the producers to, produce more responsibly and to make better quality products by themselves only, because they know that will come back to them only. So, and there should be a circular design. That's what designing comes in. The circular design should be there so that when it comes back to them, it should be easily repairable without much loss to them. So that's quite interesting, yeah. And you have already, Reva, you have already discussed these kind of challenges when some damage happens, or there is a part that goes wrong, something goes wrong with the product. So that kind of challenge is definitely there. My next question was coming to this only. So considering that this business model, when somebody is transitioning to this kind of a business model, what kind of challenges or considerations that businesses should have?
Right. I think so far we have also been talking about the model in more general sense. We have not sort of
Hmm.
gone into who these consumers are. And one of the largest consumer for any sort of products remains the public sector, and or even private sector organizations if such models are available. And yeah, so basically, one of the challenges is that a lot of our agreements when procuring products are still based around ownerships, you know. To shift from an ownership kind of agreements to a more subscription and lease agreement, these are called product service systems, subscription lease is more commonly known term, but the technical sort of term between experts is the product service systems, as you know. So the
Hmm.
products in the product service systems, the so when you're trying to enter into a new product which you would like to procure as an organization, whether in the public sector or in the private sector,
Hmm.
you really have to go and understand how those agreements are made, right? There's also a necessity. I mean, if you, for example, identify a need that, this is my particular need in terms of like for example, I said lighting as a service or mobility as a need, then if I have the need for ICT services,
Hmm.
ICT equipments, phone leasing or laptop leasing, or
Hmm.
printers is pretty common in the industry currently. There's so when you're trying to enter into that, there is also a need to undertake sort of market assessment. What kind of product do I need,
Hmm.
or what kind of need do I have. That is a very important thing to undertake. The other is, once you have taken, you also need to understand how maintenance. For example, for a lot of our products that we buy, we also have AMCs, the annual maintenance
Yeah.
agreements with the companies, right? So the now, if you have a service model, then the AMC would also
Hmm.
change, right? And then how do you sort of move from that to then? I think also in terms of, and I've heard this from uh, industry partners and actors saying that, okay, so let's say we give this, and their systems and their processes are still aligned to ownership models. Then even if, for example, there's an interest in a particular actor to procure services of a particular kind, then to meet that demand, the internal mechanisms for the service partner also changes, you know
Hmm.
so that is also there. And um, I think there is a need to have that community of practice,
Hmm.
where people come together, the organization that needs it, the kind of the providers of that, potential providers of that service comes together and discuss all the operational and strategic requirements of the departments. And within internally, organizations will also then slowly need to develop like a standard procedures and guidelines for going into such models, or and how do you, and also there is also conversation around cost. How do
Mm.
you arrive at that cost? I think this is the most crucial bit
Yeah.
also for both sides. I mean, what is the cost for that service? And when you're doing an evaluation, I think for the consumer, it's important to also evaluate the total cost of ownership. What is my total cost of ownership, including AMCs, including repairs, including management, responsible management of end of life of those products, because everybody in our rules, for a range of products, we know that the extended producer responsibility is in place, and
Mm.
still the responsibility on the disposer of that waste, end of life product, is also there. And it's important, that so if you do it responsibly, there is also some level of effort and energy and cost associated with that as well. Although in the extended producer responsibility, the producers have to sort of ensure the reverse logistics of that product. However, so once you take into account all of that, then you can also see, what are the kind of costs that are there for maintaining your product. you know can how can that be lowered within a service agreement? How is it that you are extending, for example, the value derivation,
Mm.
for a particular service, and then to sort of reach at a reasonable cost, that helps you also maybe bring down some level of cost, and for also the subscriber, it's also not sort of a, this shift doesn't become a loss making enterprise. I mean, of
Mm.
course, we have seen a lot of models on subscription that are already ongoing, even in the even in the public sector. In India, we know that GEM even has, for several, they have within their portal, uh, for IT and communication sectors. They already have included, since I think a year and a half or something. I'm not sure the exact date, but they already have many IT and communication sector products, and some subcategories. It
Mm.
doesn't obviously include all kind of electrical and electronic products and IT equipments and telecom sector equipments,
Mm.
but they definitely have a service category for subscription based models for some products. And I think something that is definitely well known, I mean, mobility
Mm.
is something that is well adopted everywhere, but in terms of products, for example, ICT products or furniture, it's
Mm.
still something that is upcoming, that still needs a lot of work, definitely.
Yeah. We really have limited options as of now in the subscription-based models. Mobility definitely, this sector is working really well with subscription-based approach. But yeah, for other industries, I think there is a lot that is there is a lot of scope that is there. So, Reva, these subscription models, how do they contribute to customer engagement and customer loyalty within a circular economy framework?
Right. I think if you get a good service, I mean,
Mm.
from a very, this economic perspective, if you get a good service or if you derive a good value, you go back to that brand or product or, service provider. And
Mm.
that is definitely there. The shift to circular, you know, practices from the consumers is also, I mean, one, I think the affordability of services is something that actually pushes consumers to this. For example, it's easier for me to not own a car and grab a taxi on an aggregator app and go wherever I need to go without the hassle of driving and facing road rage and parking. The headache of
Yeah.
parking in multinational, sorry, these big cities, not
Mm.
multinational cities, but big cities, metros, metropolitan cities. and mega cities. So it sort of, it takes care of a lot of my headache. I don't need to sort of work on maintaining my car. I don't need to worry about insurance cost and maintenance cost and all of that. And it could also translate into other areas. So it really is, when you're going towards a service from an ownership perspective, when you're going towards a service, what are your motivations also guiding so if my motivation is to have a good service, and I know that, okay, I have this product, and somebody will come, if this the service that I'm wanting from this product on a subscription model, if somebody will come and take care of the repair, you know and if it's not repaired, then I will get some other sort of model. If it doesn't break from me, and it has some internal some breakage, and that can happen, that it's entirely possible. But still, so I would the point is around also quality assurance, the quality assurance and the service assurance. I think if those two come together along with an affordable cost, it's not so tough for the consumers to move. I mean, for example, now thrifting is so common. I mean, it's not subscription and leasing, but thrifting is so common among new generations. I mean, in many, we have seen uh, so far that at least in the context of our country, we know that it's fairly acceptable to exchange clothes within your family and friend circle. However, there hasn't been such an openness to sort of renting clothes, but now for special occasions, people are also open to renting high-end clothes, or whatever is it that they're looking for, designer or something, and within an affordable cost, and giving it back. And also thrifting, for example, now you can thrift from anywhere. I don't need to specifically go to my sister or my friends to say, okay, this is something that I can borrow from you, or I take from you. But also across completely different terrains and geography, just somebody giving as good as new, or a good condition cloth. So there is also that change, including in, I mean, for us it's easier, maybe, because we talk about circular economy day and night. So for us it's that change is easier, because we are trying to convince people to make all kind of changes, all stakeholders. But I've actually seen people not even interested in environmental outcomes, just but
Yeah.
this is something that exists, and this is something that is easy to access, and so they will go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't think anybody taking aggregator app based cabs are thinking about, oh, I'm not owning a car. I mean, I think that way because I work in that domain. I think, look at my carbon emissions and everything.
Mm.
So, but for a lot of people, from the majority of people, I don't think it's even 0.01% thinking, oh, this will have circular or environmental outcomes. uh, is that it's just a service that fulfills their needs and is friendly, easy to access. And yeah,
Something
I
which
hope
is
I've answered your
pocket-friendly.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, very well. So something that suffices their needs, and something which is pocket friendly also, that goes. I think that has existence. This will find some consumers definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah. So Revat, my next question to you would be that. What impact do subscription models have on design and manufacturing? I think we have covered it a little bit in the first question that you had answered, first or second, I think. So, this impact on design and manufacturing processes which align with circular principles, how do they impact on the design and manufacturing processes?
Yeah, we did discuss it. So I think, if
Yeah.
with subscription and lease models, we are also saying that, the
Mm.
product goes back to the service provider, and that service provider, for a range of products, can also be the producer or manufacturer, no? Uh,
Mm.
of So basically, producer and manufacturer, instead of selling their products, are selling services,
Mm.
meeting a particular need of a consumer, and giving value to the consumer. So while doing that, I mean, also going back from the subscription side, for example, in some of the existing public procurement models for these services, for subscription services, we also see that they also have in mind a particular outcome. So for example, you could have very different outcomes in mind. You could also have a very financial outcome in mind, that renting something would be cheaper over this period of time. I only have this need. This is not a need that I would have again. So renting is cheaper there, or subscribing is cheaper there. So it might also be guided by purely financial outcomes. But wherever we see that, wherever we want to use these models to achieve circular / sustainable outcomes, we also see that while doing the market evaluation and setting up these community of practices or open discussion spaces where public and private sector could come together to develop models around particular products, is that the requirement for one, quality and longevity of the products is included. Requirement around energy efficiency is included. That these products that you're leasing are not products that have higher energy
Yeah.
usage than whatever is the most efficient in the market. So those requirements are included, as well as that these products should be free of ROHS or the hazardous material, and that these products could also be could have a circular design. So while also developing a very facilitative, I would say, subscription agreement between the subscriber and the provider of service, there also is this potential to include these things. So
Mm,
for example, and once we see that, okay, if my product is going, as a producer, let's assume I'm a producer and my product is going to a subscriber and it comes
mm,
back to me, then
mm,
the sort of the not just the responsibility, but then the thinking of how it gets repaired. What do I do at the end of life? Do I just throw this product that I have painstakingly manufactured? It has gone through a huge process
mm,
for the entire manufacturing team and the entire corporation. And do I just throw it? Where do I store it?
mm,
How do I manage it? And how do I design it better so that I'm able to also take care of it whenever that product comes to me? Repair also has a cost. It elongates the product life. Then if you want to make products repairable, you will have to design them as such. If you
mm.
want to phase out hazardous substances, then you will have to design your products with materials that are not hazardous, or that also don't have unintended consequences. I mean, this is a learning for everybody around the world, that you will have a solution, but you will also have unintended consequences from the solution, and you will have to think through a life cycle approach. So uh, in many cases, it can push the service providers, who potentially could be manufacturers, to also making products that meet some of these principles, the circular principles.
Right, absolutely right, Reva. So I think we have had the answers to all of our questions, and we could, I think, count upon the advantages of subscription-based models, as they enhance the longevity of a product, and they keep the life cycle to as much as possible, and reverse logistics also. It showcases reverse logistics also. So, Reva, thanks a lot for your time today. We definitely had an enlightening insights from you, and it has been truly engaging and informative session today with you.
Thanks a lot, Surbit. It is a pleasure speaking to you always. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thank you. Thanks, Reva. And to our viewers also, thanks for joining us. Thanks for viewing this video. We look forward to welcoming you next week also at the same time, around the same time on Wednesday, for another episode featuring another expert. Should you have any queries, feel free to reach out to us at surabhi@icce.com. Stay connected through our social media channels for updates on upcoming events. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye bye.